Hi, it's Future. Welcome to my channel. If you want to see how I make these beautiful short pants with double pleats and cuffs, please stay tuned. Make sure to stay until the end so that you can see the pattern making process and the sewing process as well. You will need a basic pen block pattern to do this. I'll leave a link in the description below. So first, trace around your pattern, making sure to mark all the notches and the dot. So this is going to be a short pen, so we're just going to be tracing up to the knee level. Lift your block, draw in your knee line, hip line, and the dot. Square in your grain line. Now shorten your pants to your desired length. I'm shortening mine by 4 centimeters. I'm going to be adding cuffs to my short pants, so I'm just gonna put 2 sections of 4 centimeters hem allowance, and then the third section will have 2 centimeters. Next, we're going to square a line down from the hip line all the way to the last line. Make sure it's squared. Now at this point, we're going to go out 1 centimeter and down 1 centimeter and square a little line. Measure this point and add the same amount to the inseam. Now we're going to square up for our hem allowance, which is 4 centimeters. Make sure it's squared. Then we're going to join these 2 points with a nice curve. Square the rest of the line down up to the end. Now join this lowered point to the normal crotch curve with a curved ruler like I'm doing here. So this part is no longer included in our pattern anymore. Next, we're going to be drawing in our waistband. So measure from the normal waistline 6 centimeters down and just follow through the waistline, measuring 6 centimeters all the way. Now I'm putting in my hour punch 1 centimeter up from the dart tip, and we'll still be using our original grain line. We're also going to remove this part of the dart from our waistband. Now labeling the pattern pieces, back waistband, cut 2 unfold, plus 1 fusing on fold 2. Now I'm outlining my seam allowance at the back crotch 1 centimeter. So we'll be cutting it out of the waistband and putting this part on fold. Labeling the main pattern, back short, cut 1 pair, and I put my initial. Now adding notches to the pattern. So we'll be cutting through this line. Cut around your pattern. Now close your dart for the waistband piece, like I'm doing here, and tape everything down. Now we're adding a joining seam allowance to our waistband piece, 1 centimeter, and cut around your pattern piece. Now I'm adding notches to my pattern piece so I know where the side seams are. So this pattern piece is finished. Now continue cutting around your pattern. And now we're gonna be adding a joining seam allowance 1 centimeter. And moving the notches across to the end of the pattern and cut around your pattern. And our back patterns are finished. Now moving on to the front. Trace around your block as usual, making sure to mark all the notches and the dart. Lift your block. Draw in your knee line, hip line, and the dart. Draw in your grain line. Now shortening my pen by 4 centimeters and adding another 4 centimeter section there, and lastly a 2 centimeter section like we did with the back pant. Next, square a line down from the hip line and removing this point out by 1 centimeter and down by 1 centimeter like we did with the back as well. Square a little line across. Now measure the distance between the pant and the squared line. Transfer the same amount to the inseam. Square a little line up by 4 centimeters and then square the rest of the line down. With your curved ruler, join these 2 points and join this point back into the original curve like I'm doing here. So this part of the pattern is no longer included. Now drawing in the waistband 6 centimeters down from the original waistline, just following through the shape there like we did with the back. 6 centimeters down all the way. And this part of the dart will be cut out. Now drawing our pocket, go 6.5 centimeters in and put a mark, and measure along the side seam 13 centimeters, put a mark. Now join these 2 points together like I'm doing here with a straight line. Measure from this point down 10 centimeters, put a mark, square a line across like I'm doing here. Now go 5 centimeters from the last point, put a mark, square another straight line down. I'm just drawing in a nice little curve at this point here. Next, add seam allowances right round 1 centimeter. Now get a folded pattern paper, put it under your pocket, and we're going to be tracing out our pocket patterns. Add the seam allowance to this part as well. Now trace around your pocket like I'm doing here, including the seam allowances. Cut around your pocket pieces, following through the tracing wheel marks that are there. Adding grain lines to my pocket pieces and labeling the patterns. Pocket bag, cut 1 pair and I put my initial. Pocket facing, cut 1 pair and I put my initial. The pocket patterns are finished. Measure 3 centimeters from this point and put a mark. Draw a straight line down. This is going to be the position for our second pleat. So we'll cut through these 2 lines and we're going to add 3 centimeters for the pleat allowance. Coming to the front crotch, I'm just gonna outline my seam allowance there 1 centimeter. This one here on my block, and adding my center front notches to both pattern pieces. Now I'm just gonna go 4.5 centimeters out to put in my fly extension. Measuring 18 centimeters down from the waist seam, put a notch and go a further 2 centimeters, put another notch. Draw a nice curve here. Transfer the notch across to the end of the pattern and adding an extra 1 centimeter seam allowance for our waistband pattern piece. Now cut around your pattern. Next, we're going to close this dart out, tap everything down, and we're going to add the joining seam allowance 1 centimeter. Cut around the pattern and labeling the pattern, front waistband, cut 2 pairs, plus 2 pairs fusing or 1 pair fusing, it depends with your own choice. Drawing in my grain line parallel to the center front. The waistband pattern is finished. Now we're going to tap in extra paper at the top of our pattern piece. Cut around the pattern like I'm doing here. Extend these lines over to the top of the paper there. Cutting through the grain line and then following through the hemline, but not through the end of our pattern there. Get a fresh pattern paper and tap the middle section of our pattern piece onto it. Measure 3 centimeters out and put a straight line. Now align the end of your pattern piece with this line and tap everything down like I'm doing here. Next, cut through the second line for the second pleat allowance and cut through the hemline like I'm doing here as well too, but not through it. Now tap the middle section down like I'm doing here. Measure 3 centimeters out and draw a straight line. Bring the edge of your pattern piece to this line and tap everything down like we did with the other part. So both our pleats will be folded towards the side seam. Next, fold your pleats the normal way they're supposed to lie and tap everything down like I'm doing here. Get a curved ruler and redraw your waistline curve. Now drawing in my seam allowance 1 centimeter and transferring the notches across. Now cutting through the pattern. Opening the pattern up. And finish cutting off all the excess paper. Now transferring all my notches for the pleats and all the rest of the notches for the pattern. And labeling the pattern piece, front short, cut 1 pair, and I put my initial. Now adding my grain line to the original place it was. And my front pattern pieces are finished. Now all the pattern pieces are finished, moving on to sewing. So you will need your completed patterns, your fabric and your usual cutting tools, and for the fabric we're using this poly cotton fabric. Now let's move on to cutting. So all our pattern pieces are cut and ready to sew. So the first step is for us to go ahead and interface all the pieces that need interfacing. So I've done that already to save time. I've interfaced all my waistband pieces, and I also went ahead and interfaced both my fly extension pieces. Okay, next get your back pieces and just go ahead and sew on the darts for both pieces. Now get your front pieces and we're gonna go ahead and fold our pleats the way they're supposed to lie, okay? Now take this to the sewing machine and just give them a top stitching here within your seam allowance. When you finish that, we're going to stitch down our pleats for about 2.5 to 5 centimeters. Just give them an edge stitching of about 2 millimeters to 3 millimeters, okay, for about 2.5 to 5 centimeters. Let's go and do that. Okay, now so we've done that. We've sewn our darts for the back shorts. And we've also sewn our pleats down and managed to iron everything down nicely. Now get your front pants. Now take this to the overlocker and we're going to overlock this edge here, okay, up to the inseam for both pants. Let's go and do that. Okay, now so we've overlocked this edge now. So what we're gonna do is to take both pieces, lay them on the table, right sides facing like this, matching our inseams, and we're just going to pin along this whole edge that we just overlocked. Now remember to put double notches where your zipper stop is going to be, which is 2 centimeters from the angle here, okay? So we're going to go ahead and do a basting stitch from the top here all the way to the double pins. Back tack here, and then we're putting a regular sewing stitch, and we're going to go ahead and sew all the way through the curve here. Leave about 1.5 to 2 centimeters at the edge here and sewn, okay? Making sure to back tack from here and back tack at the end here as well. Okay, let's go and do that. Okay, now so we've done that, and I also went ahead and ironed my seam open like this, okay? So now with your pants wrong side facing up, we're going to grab our zipper. Make sure that your zipper teeth are lying next to the seam line here, not on top of it, but next to it towards the right. What we're going to do is to put the zipper right side facing right side of the pants here like this. And make sure you grab just the zipper and the right side of the fly, okay, and pin the two together. So we're gonna take this to the sewing machine and we're just going to sew with our zipper foot just to attach the zipper fly and the right side of the zipper together right here, okay? Okay, so that's done. So now the next step is for us to flip our zipper back like this to the right side, and we're going to grab just the zipper and the right side of the fly again, and we're going to give this an edge stitching from the bottom all the way to the top. Okay, let's go and do that. Okay, now so we've done that. So the next thing, we're going to go ahead and flip this to the other side, and we're going to grab just the zipper and the left side fly extension, and we're going to pin the two together. Then we're gonna take this to the sewing machine. Just pin this out of the way, and we're going to go ahead and attach these two together from the top all the way to the bottom, back tacking at the beginning and at the end. You can use your zipper foot for this. Okay, so we've done that. Now just keep your right side pinned out of the way, and we're gonna go to the right side. Now we're going to go and do our top stitching from the seam allowance here all the way to the top, or you can start from the top all the way down to the seam. Okay, let's go and do that. Okay, now so that's done. I don't know if you can see that. And now I'm gonna go to the wrong side of our pants, get the pin out. Now we're going to go ahead and attach these two together. Okay, now so we finished assembling our zipper. I also went ahead and removed the basting stitches that were here, and now our zipper is all nicely finished. Okay, it looks nice and neat. Next, we're going to be assembling our pockets. So with your pants right sides facing up, we're going to take both our pocket facings and we're going to lay them on top of the pockets, right sides facing each other like this, and pin everything down nicely. Now take this to the sewing machine and we're just going to sew our pocket openings from the top all the way to the side seam. When we finish that, we're going to understitch our pockets. So just roll your pocket facing on top of your seam allowance and we're going to just understitch along here, just so the pockets will sit nicely inside our shorts. Let's go and do that for both. Okay, so we've done that, and I also went ahead and ironed my pockets inside the pants nicely. So next we're going to get our pocket bags and we're just going to lay them on top of the pockets, matching the curved edges, and pin everything down. So we're just gonna take this to the sewing machine and we're going to be just attaching the pocket back and the pocket facing together at the bottom edge all the way around until we get to the waistline. Okay, just this curved edge up to the top, and we're going to overlock both as well. Let's go and do that. Okay, now so we almost finished sewing our pockets. So now what we're going to do is to just go ahead and attach the top of our pockets here to the pant so that it works as one piece right at the top and along the side seam here. So just sew within your seam allowance. I'll be using 0.5 centimeters just to attach this part and the side seam for both pockets. Let's do that. Okay, so our pockets are nicely finished now, as you can see. So next we're gonna get our back pieces and then we're going to lay them on top of the front piece, right sides facing, matching our side seams. So we're going to go ahead and pin along the side seams for both sides, matching the notches as we go along. Now take this to the sewing machine and we're just going to sew along the side seams and overlock them. Now get your two waistband pieces and we're going to lay them on the table, right sides facing, matching the side seams. Now pin along the side seams. Now we're gonna go ahead and sew along the side seams for both pieces. Let's go and do that. Now get your two waistband pieces, lay them on the table, right sides facing, matching all your side seams. Pin along the top edge. So take this to the sewing machine and just sew from one end to the other, and when we finish that we're going to understitch this whole seam, okay, just like that at the top here. Okay, when we finish that side that we'll have understitched, we're just going to go ahead and overlock the whole edge. Okay, let's go and do that. So we managed to sew on our side seams and overlock them. Now we're gonna go to our inseams, mesh them together and pin them along. Now we're gonna take this to the sewing machine and just sew along the inseams from the top all the way to the bottom for both sides, from the top all the way to the bottom. Let's go and do that. Okay, now we've sewn the inseams and overlocked them. Now we're going to grab the rest of the seam, which is the back crotch, pin it along, so now we're gonna take this to the sewing machine and sew along the back crotch all the way to where we stopped sewing at the front crotch here, okay? And make sure to overlock the whole seam. When we finish that, we're going to go ahead and overlock right around our hems for the pants, okay? Let's do that. Okay, now so we finished sewing the crotch seam for the back, and we also went ahead and overlocked the hems of our pant, and I went ahead and ironed my hem allowance up, which is 6 centimeters in total, okay? Then we're gonna get our waistband piece. We went ahead and sewn along the waist seam and understitched it, and also overlocked the bottom edge for the understitched side, okay? Now we're gonna get the side that's not understitched. Open our zipper. Just gonna shorten the ends of my zipper here. Now I'm gonna get my waistband piece, the one that's not overlocked, and I'm just gonna put it right sides facing with the right side of the pants, making sure to leave 1 centimeter seam allowance overlap there, and pin along the whole waistline, and leave another seam allowance overlap on the other end as well. So now we're gonna take this to the sewing machine and sew from one end to the other, okay? We'll be left with a little bit of an extension on this side, all right? Then whilst we're there, we're also going to go ahead and stitch down our hems. So I'm just gonna stitch next to the overlock stitching here, right round for both legs. Let's go and do that. Okay, now so we've sewn on our seam here. So what we're going to do next is to finish the ends of our waistband. So just fold the waistband back on itself like this, making sure that the seam allowance here is facing up, and we're just going to pin along the edge. So just take this to your sewing machine, and we're just going to sew with a 1 centimeter seam allowance all the way to the fold line, okay, on this side. Then this side with an overlap. So we're just gonna go ahead and snip right here up to the seam. Okay. Now we're going to flip this back as well, like this. And we're just going to align the edges and pin along. So we're going to take this to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew from here to the corner and back to the fold line, okay? Let's go and do that. Okay, so now we're going to turn the waistband to the right side. Okay, now so we're gonna take this to the sewing machine, and we're going to go ahead and do a stitch in the ditch, making sure to catch everything at the back here, and making sure that your seam is still up there, covered with this one here, okay? Let's go and do that right round. And then with our hem, we're just gonna go to the iron and iron right round our hem of 4 centimeters up, okay? Just go and iron your hem of 4 centimeters up like this. When we finish, we're just going to take it to the sewing machine as well, and we're just going to tack it at the seams here, okay? Just do a stitch in the ditch as well, just to hold this together, both seams. Let's go and do that. Okay, now so my short pants are finished, and they're looking nice and neat. Thank you.